The least expected day. I always believed that everything in the paranormal world had already been written. Witchcraft, ghostly apparitions, demonic possessions, even the manifestations of the Nameless One. But I was wrong. I met a newlywed couple who, instead of celebrating their new step with happiness, became victims of an encounter one night that surpassed anything I had ever known. I didn't see anything myself. I wasn't a direct witness to the event, but I can firmly testify to the aftermath of that macabre, brutal, and grotesque experience which ruined their lives forever. As for me, I'll only tell you that my name is Mario. I'm from Mexico and I'm 58 years old. The protagonist of this story, or rather the only one still with us today, allowed me to share what they endured with one condition: not to reveal their real names or too many details of the events, especially not their location. And that's more than understandable, especially out of respect, as I can sincerely assure you that you've never heard anything like what you'll learn tonight. At least, that's the case for me. Having clarified this, I will now recount what happened back in 1992. We knew each other for as long as I can remember. We were born in the same town, and since we went to school together, I can also say we practically grew up together. Jose, who I will call by a fictitious name, became my best friend. Likewise, I'll refer to the second protagonist as Paula. She not only grew up with us, but became Jose's girlfriend since our teenage years. Over the years, they consolidated their relationship by getting married. They were still young. He was 26 and she was 24. I shed tears when I remember the things they used to tell me, the plans and dreams they wanted to achieve, which were snatched from their hands by evil on the least expected day. Of course, I was telling my dad about it these past days, and he agreed. So the car is yours for a few days. The only thing he asked is that you take good care of it. However, I have a concern. Are you sure you want to go to that city? I know the honeymoon should be magical and unforgettable, but why go so far? There are so many tourist spots in neighboring cities that will amaze you. I don't know, just my opinion. But of course, you two go wherever you want. I just keep thinking that the city you chose is much bigger, and since we don't know it, I think it would be better to go to one we've already visited. I told Jose that afternoon when he asked if my dad had decided to lend them his car. Don't worry, my friend, we'll be fine. On one hand, unfamiliar places give this kind of event that special touch. Don't forget, it's our honeymoon. We'll spend our first night as a legitimate couple there, he replied, reassuring me. A few days later, the wedding took place. The ceremony in the church, the reception at the hall, the guests who accompanied the newlyweds. Everything was perfect. That same night, they got into the car and said their goodbyes. I hugged them both again, congratulating them, wishing them the best, unaware that they were heading straight to their own hell. According to Jose, the journey went smoothly. They arrived at their destination around midday and checked into their pre-booked hotel room. After resting, they went out to explore the city center, returning to the hotel at night to continue resting, as they had plans to visit a nearby small, beautiful rural town the following day. By midday, they were there. The only unpleasant part was the drive through the dirt road leading to the town, surrounded by wilderness and silence, giving it a somewhat eerie atmosphere. The plan was to stay there for the day, rest in a rental apartment, and head to another town the next morning. That evening, they looked for a bar to unwind for a few hours, have dinner, and finally head to bed. It was in that very place where the unexpected happened, and perhaps that's where it all began. Jose told me the bar, though modest, had a pleasant atmosphere. There were other people enjoying drinks, but it was a particular small group of 5 visibly intoxicated men that stood out. At first, they were having fun without causing trouble. The problem began when Paula got up to go to the bathroom. Jose stayed at the table, unconcerned, until minutes later when he heard her shout his name. Looking up, he saw her, returning, but being held by one of the men from the group, who was disrespectfully trying to hug her. As you might imagine, Jose lost it, quickly running to free her, which led to a fight. Thank God it was brief. While Jose was fighting the man, the bar owner and employees immediately intervened, preventing the situation from escalating. The men seemed ready to kill Jose, advancing towards him with knives in their hands. The altercation ended with my friends heading to the apartment and the drunkards still in the bar, arguing with the staff. Paula was crying, and Jose was still furious about what had happened. An hour later, when they thought it was all over, the group of troublemakers, led by the man who started it, showed up outside the apartment, shouting for Jose to come out and continue the fight. The apartment owners called the local police, who arrested the group, or so Jose thought. Half an hour later, they began preparing to leave the town immediately. Soon after, they were driving along the road, trying to escape the nightmare, both submerged in a sea of desolation and frustration. But as often happens, evil didn't stop its pursuit of causing harm and pain. Just a few kilometers away, the true horror of this story unfolded. They started hearing strange noises coming from the woods alongside the road. Jose was immediately reminded of the same feeling he had while driving along the dirt road out of town. A chill ran down his spine as he wondered if they were being followed. A grim realization shattered any remaining hope of enjoying their honeymoon. Two armed men were waiting for them in the middle of the road, their faces covered by masks, foreshadowing their vile intentions. Unfortunately, Jose couldn't avoid them as they were pointing guns at him, so he pulled over to the side. In the blink of an eye, other men appeared from the woods, identical in appearance, and threatened my friend, forcing him out of the car, but not Paula. Jose fought as much as he could. Though he wasn't shot, the beating he received left him unconscious. He woke up tied up in the middle of the woods, surrounded by those men. But what shocked him most was another presence. A monstrous creature stood a few meters away, a huge, mutant dog-like figure with a human face, specifically that of an old man. Its black fur gleamed under the moonlight, and its heavy paws, armed with claws, sank into the ground as it slowly approached Jose. When it stopped nearby, as if in a sick illusion, Jose watched the beast begin to rise on its hind legs. The word Nahual flashed in his mind, and nothing could contradict his thought when the creature, unsatisfied with the terror it had already caused, took it beyond imagination. "We hate outsiders here." The hoarse voice of the Nahual chilled Jose's soul. He tried to stand and run, but couldn't. His body was too broken to allow it. The criminals accompanying the creature rushed to strike him again. Vulnerable and defenseless, Jose dared to ask the Nahual what it wanted, while coughing up blood that stained the ground, where he collapsed once again. "We don't care about you. We've already got what we wanted." That was the last thing he heard before being struck unconscious once more, though not before realizing that Paula wasn't there, and that several men he had seen earlier were missing. The same image of his beloved froze his senses when he woke up. Summoning all his strength, he searched for the road where the car and Paula had been left. He doesn't remember how long it took, but when he found it, he felt his life slipping away. Paula lay unconscious on the ground beside the car, her face bloodied, her clothes torn. No one else was around. They were exposed, their lives shattered on that dark road, with the moon as the only witness to the abrupt end of their dreams and goals, which they would now never fulfill. Only Jose and my family heard this story from him. I still remember when he told it, his body trembling, his voice breaking, his face soaked with tears. It was the crude proof that what they had lived through was undeniably real. Paula never recovered. Unable to bear the terror and panic she lived with, she took her own life months later. As I mentioned at the beginning, I omitted several details, but if the ones I included are enough for you to find this story terrifying, Imagine how you'd feel if I told you everything. A monster, no, a cursed demon, is what took their dreams, goals, and plans, and yet many questions remain unanswered. Was there more than one Narwhal? Because they swear several were following them. Who were those two men waiting for them? It seems it was an ambush, and if so, why? How did they know Jose and Paula would pass through there? Was it random? We don't think so, given that the creature told Jose we already got what we wanted, clearly referring to Paula, who was left at the mercy of the other men. She was brutally assaulted, but they left her alive, knowing she could have recognized them. Or maybe their intention was always to let her continue living in agony, knowing that she would eventually end it herself. And then there's Jose. His survival was nothing but a way to keep torturing him. To this day, there are many reports of missing people on that stretch of road. Could it be the same criminals? And if that's the case, it chills me to think that the townspeople could be involved, something we may never know. And to finish, were those drunkards from the bar the same men who, joined by others, chased them down until they caught them? Why didn't they take advantage of that dirt path to catch them before reaching the road, where there were more chances of being discovered committing such a heinous act? But without a doubt, considering everything previously mentioned, that old pervert was the damned Narwhal that ruined both their lives. How cruel fate can be. No newlywed couple would ever think that while celebrating their honeymoon, a peculiar incident would prompt a group of scoundrels to mercilessly and shamelessly change their lives forever on the least expected day.